Hello and welcome to Business Talks. I am your host, Lonna Smith. Today we are celebrating our law enforcement here with the Spokane PD, and we have two of the best. You know, the guys are going to give you so much junk about that.
Thanks for that. Yeah.
But they actually wrote that in their profile that they are the best. And I'm throwing you under the bus so bad. But I'm so excited to have them here because we have a special guest coming on in part 2 that people are going to be very excited about. If you've heard the word Zeus or the name Zeus, you will know Zeus is a well-known fixture at the Spokane Police Department. He is a canine partner to Todd Belitz, who is here, and we also have the sergeant of the canine unit, Nate Spiering. So we're going to talk about how you guys got into law enforcement. We know in our current culture, you know, that you have a lot of challenges facing you. I want you to know here at Spokane Talks Media that we are fervent supporters of law enforcement, and we will continue to bang that drum until we can no longer bang it. So you know. We appreciate your service, so thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Yeah,
appreciate it.
And you can pay me later. I will take check, cash, or credit card.
Yeah. Aside from the "we're awesome" part in the thing,
well,
you
that
did really
you are
good.
you are number one in your unit there. Okay, so both of you got into law enforcement. Now, Nate, you are a Spokaneite,
Yep.
born and raised, Zag grad.
I am.
Go Zags!
Yep.
Oh my gosh, they're
Yeah,
so
they were
awesome.
just getting started when I left in '97. So
Yes.
yeah, yep.
Okay, and you've been with the department 24 years?
24 years. Yeah.
24 years. You
Yep.
are 47 and a half.
and a half. Thank
The
you.
half was very important for him, so
Yeah.
we're going to add that. 47 and a half. And so you started out as a patrol officer?
Yeah, so that's the nature of the beast. You get hired by our department, you go through the basic academy. Once you graduate the academy, you then attend some Spokane-specific academy training, because the academy is a state certification. So then you come to Spokane, or you're graduate the academy here in Spokane if you're lucky enough, and then attend about 2 weeks of Spokane-specific training, and then that's when the hard work really starts.
Okay.
Yeah, so you have a field training officer, 4 rotations. You're on probation, and now the probation is, I think, 18 months.
Correct.
Yeah, and it used to be just a year. So you are working hard, earning your way the entire time before you're off
And
probation. And learning.
Learning
Absolutely.
and honing your skill set.
Yep.
And to serve the community.
Oh, that's the whole reason you
That's
get into
it.
this job. Yeah.
And why did you get into law enforcement? What was it about the profession that drew you?
I worked my way through college. I had a few jobs and had interaction with Spokane Police at that time, and were impressed.
Do you want to specify that your interactions with the Spokane Police were
That's
not
a
of an
very valid
illegal-
point. Being in college at the time, I should specify that. Yeah.
So you had some positive interactions.
Positive interactions,
with the Spokane
absolutely.
Police Department.
You can look around the country, and there was a time where I really wanted to be a law enforcement officer, but I was afraid that if you go to school and you go into law enforcement in school, you graduate with that, and then nobody wants to hire you. You have a non-marketable skill. So I actually went studied business for a little while. That was not my forte. Switched to education because high school counseling, I had a counselor in high school who was just an awesome person and made an impact in my life. But I think that's what it boils down to, is the impact in a life. And so realizing that this job does offer you an opportunity to have an impact in people's lives, even if that's 1 out of 50 people you'll deal with, that makes it worth it.
So do you advocate for those school counselors to talk about law enforcement as an option, for those kids that don't have a career path? I mean, is there some information that is available to high school students now that would guide them
Yeah,
into
our
this career?
department's pretty heavy into being active in recruiting across multiple diverse groups of people and genre, and looking for people who are interested in law enforcement, interested in serving their community. You look at just generational differences and people coming in now, and I find myself being the stereotypical ask my daughter to help me put, figure stuff out on the phone or the computer or things like that. I'm like,
They're good at
wow,
that,
man,
yes.
back in my day it was, VHS or beta, and there was a huge difference. And so, yeah, but getting a hold of that, I guess, piquing that interest, and if it's high school or whatever, it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that doesn't have a career group. This is a phenomenal career, regardless of what you want to do. And yeah, we have to be recruiting, especially at, and you're looking for people that want to better the community around them. I mean, otherwise their heart's not in it. If their heart's not in it, then I think you're in it for the wrong reason.
It's not about a uniform or being able to turn the siren on a car. It really is about serving your community and protecting.
Those are the perks.
Those are the perks.
Although the siren starts to hurt
Well,
your ears
hopefully
after a while.
that's down the list, though, after serving your community and having a desire to protect your community.
If your heart is not here to serve and protect, you're in the wrong profession. And I looked at Spokane Police and even my interaction prior to getting hired, and that's what I saw. And I love to hunt, I love to fish, I love this area anyways, so it would have been really hard to walk away from, because we're near nature, near perfect. This is a great place to be living.
It is.
A great place to raise a family. But at the same time, it's a phenomenal agency. It drew me in early, and I haven't been disappointed.
That's great. And then 2 years ago, you moved into a new position,
Yeah.
which you're the sergeant of the K-9 unit.
Yeah. So as you take promotional exams and you're fortunate enough to pass them and get promoted, then you're placed kind of where the department needs you at that moment. I ended up on patrol for about 3 years as sergeant, and then transitioned to the K-9 unit in July of 19. And never in my career did I think anything about working a dog, knowing anything more than these guys show up, and when they show up, there's a whole lot of information brought with them, and their natural ability to take charge of a call and run a call and have things run smoothly. From a patrol sergeant side of the house, when these guys show up, it was phenomenal. It was almost, it eases you. So to go to that unit and work with these guys has been a blessing. That's
great. And so we talked about this a little bit. There must have been a huge learning curve when you go from patrol, you've done bike, motorcycle, and car patrol, and now sergeant of the K-9 unit. And you had never previously had a K-9 partner.
No.
So there was a large learning curve?
Very large learning curve, yeah. And I mean, those are hour-long discussions, and you can go down so many rabbit holes and tangents. But hanging out at training and interacting with them, having these guys take time out to show me the why behind some of that, it's mission critical, because things look one way, on paper or video or something like that, but the why behind it, there's a lot of science behind it. There's specific things we're looking for in apprehension work that mitigate risk of injury to the person we're apprehending, even though the people we are using a dog to apprehend are the worst of the worst. That the threats and the violent level is always up there. So, the misconception that dogs can be used to chase somebody down who's running with a stolen candy bar, that doesn't happen. There is not a threat factor that is a risk to the community, that the dog has to be the one to solve that problem. So that learning curve it doesn't stop. I bet you would agree that even though you've been a handler for 8 years? 7 years, it never stops. And then, I see these guys doing things with their dog on one day, and things are working great, and then they're focusing on something else another day, and I myself used to sit back and, why are we focusing on that? Well, they'll go work basic obedience, for example, almost every single, the dogs live at home, and I'll let Todd talk about some of that stuff, but they're doing obedience every single day, but even every week in training, it's the same repetitive obedience and over again, because the decision for the dog to be utilized is not up to the dog ever. It's up to the human making the conscious decision. Yeah. And so things started to click a little bit, but man, I rely on these guys' expertise for sure. Man, I've been fortunate enough to be surrounded by a group of 6 very hardworking individuals.
That's great. How's he doing, Todd?
Am I gonna say
I know he's
anything
sitting
else?
next to you, but
No, I will say, and I can speak for our entire unit and the handlers that have left the unit since Nate has been here, but he has taken a vested interest in not just being the supervisor and a figurehead of the unit. He has absolutely come in and learned how to work a dog, learned how to train a dog, the how, what, and why we do certain things, not only in training, but in real life street deployments as well. And so I've said when people talk about it, with Nate coming into the unit, that I would be comfortable. Obviously, we couldn't do this, but I would be comfortable giving him the leash to Zeus and allowing him to go work Zeus on the street. Obviously, certifications would prevent that, but his knowledge base, he has really picked it up. I mean, he came into the unit. He came into the unit, and one of the hardest things to do is to take, really be humble about it, and saying, I don't know what I don't know. And then being able to get in a bite suit, put on a bite sleeve, and actually be a decoy, because you learn a lot from that part. They're one of the biggest parts of training a dog in the training triangle that we work on. And Nate did that right from the very beginning, learned how to decoy so he could see that side of it. And he's become very knowledgeable in actually being able to work a dog if we needed it.
Well, now you can send cash, check, or credit card to.
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. It's going to be an expensive afternoon. Yep.
So Todd Belitz, you have had Zeus, which a lot of people know Zeus. He's been at a lot of nonprofit auctions. He's had a lot of FaceTime with the media. A lot of people know Zeus, and you've been his partner, or he's been your partner.
You had it right.
Yeah. You've been his partner for 7 years. Is he your first canine partner?
He is, yes.
And so give us a little of your background coming into the law enforcement agency.
So I spent almost 6 years working at the county jail here in Spokane, and then I had always wanted to come out and work patrol. And like Sergeant Spiering said, when you look around at different agencies around here, I applied at one department, and that was the Spokane Police Department. I didn't apply at the county. I didn't apply in smaller agencies around here. I didn't want to leave the area. I wanted to stay here, and I wanted to work for the Spokane Police Department. They were the major leagues of and still are of police departments and police agencies around here. So I really wanted to get out on patrol. That had always been something I wanted to do ever since I left college. And when that opportunity came about, I was fortunate to get hired, and like Sergeant Spiering said, go through the academy. Unfortunately, I went to Spiering, so I had to be away for almost 6 months from my family. But after the academy, same process: FTO program, training car, and then finally get out on your own to finish up that 18-month probationary period.
And so have you done all of the areas like Nate has? Have you done bike patrol, motorcycle, and
No.
and car?
No.
You didn't wear the bike shorts, did you?
I did not.
It's a gift. Yeah.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
I started out I basically, prior to my time in the unit, I've worked graveyard patrol.
Okay.
And that's by choice.
It is.
Would much rather work at night.
Wow, that's a calling.
It is. It truly is.
Because
And
the worst stuff happens.
It is.
After midnight.
Parents
That's
always
what I always
say-
told my teenagers.
Right. Parents always say nothing good happens after midnight.
Nope.
Well, that's when stuff really starts to heat up for us typically. However, I worked patrol on patrol teams throughout the city and both sides of the city, north and south. And I was a field training officer for a while. I was on the dignitary protection unit, and I worked on the TAC team and worked with the gang unit for a short period of time, and as a gang liaison officer on patrol. And so I kind of had my hand in quite a few things. I teach defensive tactics and firearms, and so I stayed extremely busy. And then the goal was always to get into the K-9 unit.
Okay, and then that opportunity made itself available 7 years ago.
Correct.
And had Zeus been in the field, or was he new? And were you both new partners to each other?
we were
Him with
both
a human
brand new.
partner, and you with the canine.
We were both brand new, yes.
Yeah. So is that more difficult, or is it easier because you guys have bonded together initially, instead of a dog coming from another handler and maybe trying to build that relationship?
These dogs are very resilient. If you do transfer a dog over, and we've done that with a few guys that have retired out of the unit and their dog had service life left. So that dog went on to the next handler that came into the unit. And they're very resilient, and they look at you a little strange at first. You know, as a trainer, we've seen that to where you hand a dog off to somebody, and typically we do a handoff with the former handler and allow them to start working a little bit of training. And when that new handler tries to get the dog to do something, he typically will look back at his now former handler like, I'm not really sure what's going on here, but they pick up very, very quickly what's going on. If you have a really good dog and that doesn't have any kind of issues that have to be worked on, that could be a good bond, a good relationship. But if there's a dog that has some quirkiness and you get a brand new handler with no experience, sometimes it takes a little bit of time to work through those difficult times when you're having some issues with the dog. But then again, when you start with a green handler and a green dog, nobody knows nothing about anything. So there's that learning curve right from the beginning.
Okay. And for you, so the dogs, they live in your home. Like you don't put them in a kennel and leave when you go home. You take Zeus home. He's part of your family. Is that correct?
Sort of.
Sort of.
Yes.
Okay.
These
Explain that to us.
These are working dogs, and they're not pets. They're not family members. When I
How
started,
do you separate that? Because I mean,
well, when I started, I was
hard.
told right away when I started my school, don't get attached to that dog. And the reason for that initial statement was we may send that dog back all the way up to a year. So you may have that dog for a year, and we may send him back to the kennel that we bought him from if it's not working out for us, if there's some issues with the dog or something like that. So there is, because there's a return policy. So there is the potential to work a dog for a short period of time, and it's just not working the way we need the dog to work here in Spokane, and we may send him back and get a different dog. He'll get recycled, and a different agency would buy him somewhere else. But there's that initial part. And then you mentioned it prior to starting up here, they're the ones that go in the big, scary, dark places. And they do that to save lives, and they truly do save lives. And so there is a potential for an elevated amount of risk for these dogs. And we would never throw our dogs in on a mission that doesn't have a chance of success. But on the other side of it is those dogs are there to mitigate and limit the risk that we have to take as humans. And they do that every single day. And so there is the potential that your dog could go down. It's happened here. It's happened in many agencies around here. And that's just something you have to get used to. But you do become extremely close to them because of the stuff that you go through.
And they're your partner.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're literally, some people have a human partner, you have a canine partner.
And when you go through some of the stuff that we've been through together, whether it be just different searches with the suspect being overly violent or being shot at. I mean, we were shot at this last year, and it was really close. And both of us, Zeus was probably 5 feet from the guy when that happened. And so you become closer because you realize you both survived something like that without injury. But you have to look at it as this dog's a tool, and they're working dogs. They're not pets. However, with that said, we do get attached. They come home with us. We have kennels at home. The city provides us with the cost to build a kennel, however we choose to do so. And we call Zeus's kennel the Dog Mahal. It's insulated. It could be 0 degrees out.
Wait, is there
Slightly
Christmas
embellished.
music playing?
No, there is
I've been
not.
told
There
that
is not.
Zeus likes Christmas music.
He's enjoying it right now.
Uh-huh. So you don't play Christmas music in the dog
Mahal.
Yeah, I think Zeus's kennel is nicer than my garage.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
it's,
I think appropriately so.
But it is amazing because these guys will get the city will provide a concrete pad and the ability to put up a fence, and then they will a fenced kennel, like a cyclone kennel, and then these guys will take it upon themselves out of their own pocketbook to maybe largen the concrete pad and actually build a kennel on
Furnish
top of that.
it with a leather couch and a big screen TV. Does Zeus have a favorite program that he watches? Is he
It is not Cops.
he doesn't like cops? No.
He go if a news or anything has a siren on, he starts the head tilt and barking.
Does he really? He responds. Now you have children.
Yes.
So tell me about that process with that conversation with your kids, because here's this beautiful, wonderful dog in their house and they can't get attached because he's a working dog. So how does that conversation look?
you really have to be upfront with the kids and any family members that live with you that this is a working dog. And although everybody's going to get attached, it's like I said, the stuff that they go through for us, you do get attached. However, there has to be that respect of the dog as a working dog. Mm-hmm. There's no table scraps. There's no treats here and there. These dogs have to be in peak physical condition. They are on a very strict diet. They are not allowed to have the dogs out without us. But the dog has to be our policy, and rightfully so. The dog has to be under our direct supervision at all times. Now, if he's locked up in his kennel, then that's fine. But if that dog is out, we have to have direct supervision of that dog. Sadly, at different places in around the country, you've probably read stories where people haven't paid attention to that kind of thing, and it's backfired on them. Mm-hmm. So we have to have the family respect the dog as a working dog. I'm extremely social fortunate that Zeus is very social. Mm-hmm. And
well, he's out in the public a lot. I mean, he's a representative. I mean, he is the canine face.
And I think that's why he's out there a lot is because he is a very social dog. It's an easy thing for him. And I'm extremely fortunate that he's able to flip a switch.
That's incredible. So tell me, we're going to bring Zeus on, so I can just hear people going, "Where's Zeus?" He'll be on. He'll be on in part 2. But tell me, if I'm going to pose this to both of you, what is the most rewarding part of your career? If you could name just your top 3, what's the most rewarding part of a career in law enforcement for you?
I touched on a little bit. It's the 1 in 50 that you actually make a difference, because that's why you got into law enforcement. Mm-hmm. And so you come home and maybe that's, I hate to say it, but a burglary victim. And that's the one time they've ever dealt with law enforcement. And, they just appreciate the service that you're providing. And you start to realize, there are a lot of negative vocal people, and there are people who are recognizing injustice, and they're doing something about that, which is perfectly fine. There are people who are going to be vocal regardless, and it may not be directed in a very productive way. The majority of folks are super appreciative and phenomenal people, and it really doesn't matter what kind of person you are, you're going to get help regardless. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that this community, for the most part, is just super supportive, and that's the reward, is you got on with a good department in a phenomenal community, and I haven't been let down.
That's great. Yeah. That's a testimony. Todd?
People talk about roll call or oral board answers. That's what I was looking for. Oral board answers. When you get interviewed, why do you want to be a police officer? Yeah. And a lot of times people have this cliche answer. However, when you dig to the bottom of that cliche answer, regardless of what they've provided, we all have the same kind of draw to go serve, like Nate said. And I tell my kids, not everybody's built the same. Mm-hmm. Not every human being is built the same. Some people just don't have the ability to stand up for themselves. And that could be in a myriad of different ways. But when we go out there and we have the ability to help those that can't help themselves, that's extremely rewarding. And it could be something as simple as help somebody out. We've get people sending emails all the time about guys that take a traffic collision. And maybe they got a ticket because they ran a red light and they caused the collision, but how those officers handled that, yes, and the level of compassion that they showed. A lot of emails come in from that, but it might be something as low level as that, but it might be doing CPR on a child and saving a life, or arresting a domestic violence suspect. And if that suspect spends time a night in jail or 10 years in jail, at least for that period of time, I always say that you've made a difference. And it could be any crime, but that person that you have arrested and taken to jail, that we can't control anything after that. But once you take them to jail, however long they're there, and it could be 50 years based on the crime, right? But during that period of time, that person does not have the ability to victimize anybody.
True.
And so
you've taken them off the street. You've made the streets safer and
you
neighborhoods
really
safer.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of work to be done, and there's a lot of cleanup to be done. But guys and gals in this department go out there every single night, every single day, and they don't look at how much is left to do. They just look at one piece at a time, and they do their job.
That's phenomenal. Well, we are going to wrap up this portion. You guys are great and phenomenal, but Zeus.
I know, yeah.
We're waiting for Zeus. They're used
I'm
to
used
this,
to it.
so it's okay. But again, I just want to thank you for your service and that you guys were called in to make our community safe, and that the encounters that our community have are so positive. And you're right. I will say this, even the naysayers or the people who are anti-law enforcement, I do not believe they understand the impact and the sacrifice that you guys make each and every day when you put that uniform on. So we appreciate you, and I know our community appreciates you. So thank you for what you do.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, and thank you for joining us today on Business Talks. I am Lonna Smith, your host.